In the heart of the bustling African city of Maringo, there was a tiny bakery called Tala's Treats. It sat squeezed between two tall buildings, often overlooked by people passing by on the busy street. Tala, a young woman in her late 20s, owned the bakery. Her warm smile and kind eyes drew in the occasional customer, but her cakes were nothing extraordinary. For months, Tala struggled to make ends meet. The rent for her shop was high, and with dozens of other bakeries in the city, competition was tough. "Why would anyone come here when they can go to that fancy bakery downtown?" she often muttered to herself. Even her best recipes couldn't compete with the intricate designs and exotic flavors offered elsewhere. One evening, after another slow day at the bakery, Tala sat by the window of her tiny apartment, looking out at the city lights. The aroma of freshly baked bread from a nearby shop wafted through the air, reminding her of her late grandmother, Bibi. Bibi had been a village healer and a master of herbs and spices. Tala fondly remembered the stories Bibi used to tell while they cooked together. "The secret to creating something unforgettable," Bibi would say, "is a touch of mystery." Tala smiled at the memory. She missed Bibi's wisdom, especially during tough times like these. That night, feeling inspired, Tala decided to experiment. She rummaged through her modest kitchen, searching for something, anything, that could transform her cakes. Her eyes landed on an old tin hidden at the back of a cupboard. The tin was worn, its label faded, but Tala recognized it immediately. It was one of Bibi's jars, filled with a strange-looking powder. She opened it cautiously and inhaled. The scent was earthy, with a hint of sweetness, unlike anything she had smelled before. Memories of Bibi's recipes came flooding back, though Tala couldn't recall exactly how this powder had been used. Her heart raced with curiosity. What if this was the mystery Bibi always spoke of? Tala hesitated for a moment, then carefully added a small pinch of the powder to a fresh batch of cake batter. She worked late into the night, her hands moving methodically as she prepared the cakes. When they came out of the oven, the aroma was intoxicating, familiar, yet new. The next morning, Tala set the cakes on display, unsure of what to expect. Her regular customers trickled in as usual, buying their morning bread and pastries. A young man named Musa, a loyal patron, was the first to try the cake. "Tala," he said, taking a bite, "this is incredible. Did you change the recipe?" Tala blushed, unsure how to respond. "Just a little tweak," she said with a nervous laugh. Soon, word began to spread. Customers returned within hours, bringing friends and family with them. By midday, the bakery was bustling with people eager to try the magical cakes everyone was raving about. Some claimed the cakes gave them energy. Others said the flavors reminded them of home. An elderly woman named Mama Sifa, a neighborhood storyteller, sat at one of the tables, savoring her slice. "Tala," she said with a smile, "this cake feels like a hug from the past. You found something special, my dear." Tala's heart swelled with pride, but a nagging thought lingered in her mind. What exactly was in that mysterious powder? She remembered Bibi's warnings about using ingredients with care. What if this powder had effects she didn't understand? By the end of the day, Tala's display shelves were empty. She had sold more cakes in a single day than she usually did in an entire week. As she locked up the shop, she felt a mix of excitement and unease. The cakes were a hit, but she couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of something much bigger and possibly more complicated than she had anticipated. Tala decided she would keep the ingredient a secret for now, just as Bibi would have wanted. But deep down, she knew this was no ordinary recipe. Whatever she had discovered, it was bound to change her life forever. The next morning, Tala's bakery was alive with energy. The air buzzed with chatter as people lined up outside her shop before it even opened. Tala could hardly believe her eyes. It was as if the entire neighborhood had woken up with one thought: Tala's cakes. As she unlocked the door, customers flooded in, their faces filled with excitement. Some brought friends, while others placed large orders. Musa, her loyal customer, returned with a group of co-workers. "Tala," he said with a grin, "you've turned this place into a sensation. Everyone's talking about your cakes." Tala worked tirelessly to meet the demand, baking batch after batch of her new recipe. By mid-afternoon, she was exhausted, but her joy outweighed her fatigue. The bakery's shelves were once again empty, and she had made more money in 2 days than she had in the past 2 months. But the mystery of the powder continued to linger in her mind. That evening, after closing the shop, Tala returned to her apartment and pulled out the tin. She examined it closely, hoping to find clues. The label was too faded to read, but the scent of the powder was unmistakable, rich, earthy, and strangely comforting. Tala remembered her grandmother using it sparingly in teas and special dishes, but Bibi had never told her what it was or where it came from. As Tala sat deep in thought, there was a knock at her door. It was her friend Zuri, a florist who lived nearby. "Tala," Zuri said, stepping inside with a bouquet of fresh lilies. "I heard about your cakes. They're incredible, but you seem a little worried. Is something wrong?" Tala hesitated, but then decided to confide in her friend. "Zuri," she said, holding up the tin, "I think this powder is the reason my cakes are so popular. It was my grandmother's, but I don't know what it is. I'm not sure if it's even safe to use." Zuri studied the tin carefully. "It smells like something I've encountered before," she said thoughtfully. "My grandmother used to talk about a rare herb found in the mountains. She said it had special properties, healing, uplifting, even magical. But it was meant to be used carefully." The word magical sent a shiver down Tala's spine. Was that what this powder was? A magical ingredient that could transform not just flavors, but feelings. The idea thrilled her, but it also made her uneasy. "Do you think I should stop using it?" Tala asked. Zuri shook her head. "I can't say for sure, but if it's bringing people joy and not harming anyone, maybe it's worth exploring. Just be cautious. Too much of a good thing can sometimes be dangerous." Tala nodded, her mind racing. She decided to do more research. That night, she stayed up late, searching for information about the mysterious powder. She found stories of ancient herbs used by African healers, plants said to hold the power to connect people to their past, awaken forgotten memories, and even inspire creativity. One story stood out, a tale of a plant called ulimi wa roho, or soul's whisper. It was rare, almost mythical, and believed to amplify emotions in those who consumed it. The next day, Tala returned to her bakery with a mix of excitement and caution. The crowd outside was even larger than before. Among them was a man in a sharp suit who introduced himself as Kwame. He was the owner of a popular cafe downtown. "I've heard about your cakes," Kwame said, extending a hand. "I'd like to place a large order for my cafe. Your recipe has the potential to become a citywide sensation." Tala's heart raced. A partnership with Kwame could elevate her bakery to new heights. But it also meant sharing her recipe, or at least part of it. She hesitated, unsure of how much to reveal about the powder. "Let me think about it," Tala said with a polite smile. Kwame nodded, leaving her his card before disappearing into the crowd. As the day went on, Tala couldn't shake the feeling that her life was on the brink of a major change. The cakes had brought her success and recognition, but they had also brought questions she wasn't ready to answer. What if someone else discovered the secret ingredient? What if it fell into the wrong hands? That evening, as Tala locked up her shop, she noticed a man standing across the street, watching her. He wore a long coat and a hat that shadowed his face. Tala's heart skipped a beat. Was he just a passerby, or was he watching her? The tin of powder felt heavier in her bag as she hurried home, her mind filled with possibilities and dangers she hadn't considered before. The days following Tala's encounter with the mysterious man across the street were filled with a mix of excitement and dread. The bakery's success had skyrocketed, with people traveling from all corners of the city just to taste her cakes. The secret ingredient, whatever it was, had become her ticket to fame. But Tala could no longer ignore the feeling that something was wrong. That evening, as Tala was closing the bakery, she spotted the man again. This time, he wasn't across the street. He was standing in the doorway of her shop, his presence unmistakable. His eyes were hidden behind dark sunglasses, and he exuded an air of authority. Tala froze, unsure whether to approach him or flee. "You've been using something powerful in your cakes, haven't you?" His voice was smooth, almost hypnotic. Tala's heart raced. She had never seen this man before, yet he knew about the powder. The secret she had kept hidden for so long was no longer safe. "What do you want?" she asked, her voice shaking. The man smiled, a cold, calculating smile. "I am a collector of rare ingredients," he said. "I've heard stories about your cakes, and I've come to make you an offer." Tala's mind raced. She had read about people like him, collectors of rare herbs, looking to profit from ancient knowledge. "I won't sell it to," the man leaned in, his voice dropping to a whisper. "You don't have to fear it. You could use it to your advantage. You could become more powerful than you ever imagined. People would do anything for your cakes. You could control them, shape them." He paused, as if weighing his next words carefully. "But you must share the secret with me. The world isn't ready for such power, and I can help you use it wisely." Tala stepped back, her hands trembling. The offer was tempting. The success, the fame, the power. It all seemed so close. But something inside her pushed back against the idea. She couldn't shake the feeling that using the powder for control, for manipulation, would lead to consequences she wasn't prepared for. "No," she said, her voice stronger now. "I won't let it control me, or anyone else." The man's smile faltered, his eyes darkening. "You have no idea what you're dealing with. This isn't just a recipe. It's a legacy, one that you don't fully comprehend. But you will." With those chilling words, he turned and walked away, disappearing into the night. Tala stood in the doorway, her heart still pounding. The encounter left her feeling unsettled, but it also gave her clarity. She had been playing with something far more powerful than she had realized. She needed to find out more about the powder, its origins, and how to control its effects before it controlled her. The next morning, Tala decided to take action. She visited Zuri, desperate for help. Together, they searched through old books and records in the city's library, uncovering stories of the Ulimi plant. It was said to grow in a hidden grove deep in the mountains, guarded by ancient spirits who kept its power in check. The plant had once been used by tribal leaders and healers, but over time, it had been lost to history. Determined to find the truth, Tala set out on a journey to the mountains, guided only by the cryptic stories she had read. The journey was difficult, but Tala's determination pushed her forward. She climbed through dense forests, crossed fast-flowing rivers, and scaled steep cliffs. After days of travel, she finally arrived at the hidden grove. There, she found the plant, its leaves glistening with an otherworldly glow. Tala knelt beside it, feeling both awe and fear. She knew she had to make a choice. The plant had the power to change lives, but it also had the potential to destroy them. With a deep breath, Tala carefully dug up the plant, deciding to return it to where it belonged. She understood now that some things were too powerful to be kept in the hands of one person. As Tala made her way back to the city, she closed her bakery, deciding to move forward with a new purpose. She would use her talents to create joy, but not at the expense of others' freedom. From that day on, Tala's cakes were still loved by all, but the mysterious ingredient was gone. She found fulfillment in her baking, knowing that true success came not from power or control, but from sharing her gifts with others without expecting anything in return. And so, the city of Marengo continued to buzz with the sweet scent of fresh cakes, but the story of Tala and her magical ingredient was told only as a distant memory, a reminder that even the most tempting secrets are not always worth keeping,